The time is 6 p.m. I will call the meeting to order. Mr. Petrosky, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Daniels?
Here.
Ms. Green? Mr. Madsen?
Here.
Mr. Majors?
Here.
Ms. Rawls? Mr. Rodriguez?
Present.
Ms. Bowers?
Present. The invocation will be led by Councilwoman Shemaine Daniels.
Thank you. If we could all have a moment of silence for this week in particular, the family of former council member Sandra Reed. Thank you.
Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilman Dave Madsen.
Right.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For communications this evening, we've been joined by Mr. Dan Miller, City Treasurer, and Mr. Charlie DeBruner, City Controller. Good evening, gentlemen. If you could please provide a brief overview of the work of your offices and any major projects that you are interested in for the fiscal year.
The controller's office is essentially responsible for making sure that the budget is adhered to. It's pretty limited. We sign every check, every contract, and I will be coming back here one day to ask you to please start putting the payroll action forms into the controller's office prior to a hire, because we really don't have any control over whether or not somebody can get hired. So we don't have a real good handle on appropriation management in the personnel line, but that's another day. So that's essentially what we do. I also have tried to use our office to be a resource for city council, so that, these financial matters can be somewhat overwhelming, and we do have a fair amount of expertise. And over the years, I've been willing to work with any and all of you if you have questions about things. And I really enjoy doing it, because I think it's for the good of the city that we all have a good understanding of what's going on financially. So that's essentially what my office does.
Thank you.
Well, and Treasury, is that too loud? No. Okay, Treasury, we're responsible for all the receipts, basically, in the city. And we should be collecting all the money, depositing it, taking care of money management. And when expenditures are paid, we make sure there's enough money there for the expenditures. If we have excess money, we invest it. We can only invest it in certain things, so we have limitations. So, I'd say that's the general overview of Treasury. We do have some big changes we'd like to see. We'd like to see changes with annual billing for trash, to put that on the real estate tax bill. So we're hoping to get that this year. There's many benefits of that, and I don't want to get into that tonight, but there's lots of benefits it's a really win-win-win-win proposition, what we're doing. We're also, I'm not sure what the latest is on new software, but we're definitely hoping we get new software this year and get that implemented. And that's going to help what really is at the core of what Treasury needs to do, and that's collect every dollar of everything that comes into the city. Right now, things are not actually being handled correctly within the city. Money is going to every place. And if you look at the city code, everything should be collected by Treasury. But I want to slow down on that until we get the new software. When we get new software, that whole system is going to be a centralized collection, so that everybody will pay everything at the city treasurer. Money won't be going anywhere else. And it's so important. It's interesting. We have Tracy Rash here, who used to be our auditor. I want to point her out there. But Tracy was our auditor for 20 years. She was always hitting me on the head saying, Treasury should be collecting every dollar. This is the way to do it, because Treasury has the controls. Everything's in one place. It's so important that we do it that way. Unfortunately, I didn't have the management behind me before, but now I think we do. And I think we're going to work towards that. We're going to really start doing things the appropriate way, the way actually City Council has voted on and set out in our city code. So those are the big things we'd like to get done this year.
Thank you very much. I will open the floor to my colleagues for any questions that they may have for either of you. I'll begin to my left with Councilman Rodriguez. Any questions?
Thank you for being here, Dan, both of you guys. When's the projected time that the Treasury Department will be able to open on a more frequent basis?
Well, we are open 2 days a week right now.
Okay.
And we are in a sense open 24 hours because we have a lockbox right outside the back doors here. So anybody who comes down here and we're not open, just put the money or put the envelope in the lockbox. In the morning, we open those up, we process those immediately. There are other ways to pay online, so you can go on the website and do that. There's automatic payment, which would take it out on the day things are due immediately. So there's many ways that we can pay. We have no plans right now to open up more than what we have. And we sort of hope that we can try to sort of change that, especially with the changes we're making.
Absolutely. Just if we can consider, sometimes that may be difficult for the senior citizen population. They may not be too tech savvy, so sometimes they do prefer to come in and get a receipt.
Yeah, we do know
Absolutely.
that. So we do try to do that.
Yep.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
Yeah, so I would just like to echo that it's not just senior citizens, it's people who work, people who have employment that's not flexible. And your office was probably one of the least accessible ones during the entire pandemic period. And it looks like you're not looking to add additional staff. So if you want to be responsible for all of the receipts, like, do you think you have the capacity to do that, given like the performance during the pandemic?
Well, I think our performance during the pandemic was very good. We didn't open because, we with cash, we were the ones who would receive people the most. So we didn't want to endanger our folks in the Treasury Department, and we tried to do as best a job we could for that. And really, there's almost no reason for anyone to actually come into the Treasury office. And we did have hours for people to come in, and we have ways for them to establish that. The thing is, if we can get annual billing passed, that transforms what we do in Treasury.
Okay, so we can't even get to annual billing because something as simple as paying parking, and I'm a council member. And it took me like an entire week just to get the right date at the right time when the office was open. And that's just me, and I have the ability to come in during the day, et cetera. Our phone collection doesn't work. Online payment doesn't work. The credit card wasn't an option because it was locked in. So the only option was checks. And,
Wow.
I hate to say, but it's like 2021, I don't really have checks. So, so for someone who is, I think your services need to serve both the elderly who may be distrustful of technology, as well as the people who work in today's environment where they're getting like cash cards now as paychecks. There are all of these other forms of payments that employers are using that aren't like checks anymore. Like nobody's using that. So, so your office has to be in a position to like actually accept payment. And the discussion of annual billing is a separate discussion, but what happened during the pandemic was really a challenge for people who have jobs. So, and I'm seeing that there's no additional staffing. So if you want to transition to provide other services, how do you think you'll be able to do that? I mean,
Well, you've asked me many things to address. Do you want to discuss the annual billing or not? Because the annual billing really is
your capacity to do the work.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what.
Well, the thing
The
about
office's capacity to do the work, because right now, based on the budget, it's the same number of people. So if during the pandemic, you weren't able to really be as accessible with this number of people.
that
how many
wasn't the
people do
reason
you
we
need to
weren't
be-
accessible during the pandemic. We weren't accessible because we didn't feel it was safe. And that's really why we tried to limit our hours, not because of anything else. I don't want to hit the detail, the annual billing. It transforms what we do. It reduces our workload tremendously. That does allow us to provide many more services. So I think that's a really transformative item. And I don't know what your experience was. There is a very big problem with parking tickets. And the problem with parking tickets is that there was not coordination between Treasury and the police department when the police department picked their software. Their software does not interface with our system. What that means is that those tickets have to go manually to the police department. Someone over there has to enter them. It's very frustrating for me. It's frustrating for me because I get the emails. But until
But
someone
we pay
in,
the extra fee, so it's a little bit more annoying.
I'm sorry?
It's a little more annoying to the person who got the ticket because they're paying $20 more. If
Well,
they're,
it
like,
has
doing-
nothing to do with us.
Well,
Because until
okay.
someone in the police department enters that ticket in the system, we can't do anything. We can't, and I know it's frustrating. You go in, you want to pay and it's not there. Well, that's
So-
because it hasn't been entered. Our softwares don't interface.
if I
So it's
remember,
it's a problem.
I could be wrong, but didn't the police get the software at the beginning of like my first term? Like the updated software, we were looking at the.
It's been a while that
Yeah,
has been a
so
problem.
this has been, so, but it doesn't seem like there has been any effort to fix that outside of the more recent efforts to enter that new contract. So like between then, when, like the moment that it was identified that software was a problem, and then, when did we start looking at the new IT? Well, actually, Councilwoman Bowers probably has a better idea of that. Right, there's really nothing in between to.
Well, if you remember for the past few years, when the budget has been passed, I've come down here and expressly asked for additional funds to be put in the Treasury budget so we could purchase software, so we could implement it, so we could address these problems. That unfortunately didn't happen. But besides that, I do think now we're on the cusp of getting new software. However, I'm not even convinced that either of the softwares we're looking about are going to interface exactly with the way the police department. I mean, the real failure was when, and it's the failure of why we aren't collecting everything. Everything has to run through Treasury. We should have been involved with the police on that, and that would have solved the problem from the get-go if we would have gotten software that worked.
But there were no stopgap measures in between. So, I mean, I'm not going to.
I don't know
wanna-
what you
because
expect me to do. They made the decision, but there's
you know
nothing
what?
we
We're
can
elected
do.
officials and people who work and pay the taxes to the city, which pay all of our salaries, can't pay a parking ticket.
Unfortunately, I'm not in charge of that. I wish I was. We could then
But-
make a
But
difference.
there's some, we're in 2021. There's so many stopgap measures that could have been used. And, even like if you needed more staffing in the last few years to kind of compensate for the lack of technology, like whatever. I mean, but, what I'm looking at is just the service that was provided during the pandemic and the staffing levels that's being requested for 2022, and they seem to be the same. So I'm not sure what your office needs to provide better service.
Well, first of all, I'm not convinced that when you said none of those things were working, every day we're getting online payments, we're getting checks, we're getting ACH payments. There's many ways people are putting in the box. So, we're available, and we haven't had that. We do have the problem with the parking tickets. That's not something, if you have a solution to that, please let me know, because we don't have a solution other than what's happening right now. So I would say, we've been giving great service, and I think we can give much better service and do other things if we can do some of the things I'm looking into. And I think the software, obviously our software is not up to snuff, and we're really anxious and very excited to get that going and be able to do many more things.
Okay, so basically no change from last year's budget to this year's budget.
Our change, I think, is what we need some things to happen this year. And then I think next year will be where we really make the changes. That's when, because we need to get the software, we need to get it installed, we need to get using it. Then we can, and hopefully we get some changes for in the trash billing. Those are two major things that are going to make a tremendous amount of difference for us in Treasury.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Majors, any questions?
I guess first, just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues about a request to have the Office of the Treasurer open up a little bit more. If you can't open up more, at least move the payment box that's located inside of Treasury to the outside of Treasury. I don't know if that be a security issue. The place where people could, do online payments or credit card payments in-house, so that people, if you're coming into City Hall, well, if I can't access the physical office of the treasurer, I can still make a payment via some other mechanism so that people have another opportunity to pay. But I think first, if we can get the treasurer's office open a little bit more to comply with the same days that the city is open, I think that would give people, our residents, just a little bit more comfort that if I come to City Hall, I can take care of not just any other business I have in another department, but the city's treasurer's office, because a lot of people do come down here still to pay a bill, or sometimes even through this pandemic, if we're following all of our proper protocols, the city has a mask mandate in the building. We can give some people some sense of safety while they're coming in to do that. Not going to talk about annual billing because that's not what we're here for. The two questions, as it pertains to the budget that came down, I see it's zeroed out for professional services for 2022. You had 10,000 last year and it's zero this year. And then there's an accounting clerk 5 position in your budget that is a personnel slot, but has no funding. How do you plan on paying for that position to get up to the complement that you had last year?
Well, I'm sorry, what was the first question?
The first question had to do with the professional services line.
Yeah. I don't have the answer to that. I think we've used that for legal services, and apparently we feel like we're not going to need that this year. So.
Okay. And then the second question.
The other thing is sometimes we get, I don't know if we paid I'll just let it at that for that. Sometimes we do pay things differently for different years, but I don't know. I mean, we don't have that expense this year.
Okay. And then the accounting clerk 5 position.
Well, right now we're managing well. And I think they do have that position open. And I think aren't we advertising for that position as far as I'm understanding? So.
Okay, but we'll have to, I guess, maybe that'll be a part of the discussions coming up in our community meetings about funding several positions that have no dollar amount attached to them. No other questions at this time.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
I don't have any questions at the time. Thank you for making yourself available tonight. I would agree with my colleagues and making the office open on not only more of a regular basis, but more times a week to allow people to be able to come in, kind of similar to how it was pre-COVID. I understand we are still living in a time where things aren't always as certain, but just making it available, especially for those who aren't tech savvy or just don't want to use an online system. Sometimes that person-to-person interaction is what people look forward to in their day. So, thank you.
Could I address that? I really don't mean to be, the world, exactly, Shemaine, the world has changed. This Treasury office was set up 50, 60 years ago. And we were sort of like a bank then. You don't go to a bank now. You've got to make an appointment, and people can come to us and make an appointment at any time. So you can call and make an appointment and we'll see you. But the truth is, you don't need to come to our office to make a payment. There are so many other ways to do it. And in fact, you can even just drop it off. So we're sort of shifting from that, whole idea of being a bank that's open all the time for anybody to walk in and do something, and trying to be, that's why we can be more efficient. The days that we're open, that's when our efficiency, our productivity goes down. When we're not open, we can handle everything and we don't need that additional person. So, so we're really sort of like in this transition period like everyone else is. And so our plan, we want to accommodate everyone and for any special thing, but we are trying to move from that whole idea of, being a bank, which we're not a bank anymore. We're really processing payments and trying to do our job in the most efficient way for us and for the residents.
I do understand that. I will say just a couple of notes there. Banks, although people don't go to the bank anymore, their apps are very user-friendly. And that kind of allows people not to have to go. We don't have that user-friendly app
We're working towards
at this
that.
time. So, it's
We're in
not like I
transition.
just go right onto my phone and it's an app and it's automatically set up and I just click, click, click. If that was the case, I think that people would take more advantage of it. So I would look forward to that. Second, we are a city service. And so we need to be more accessible to the residents, just so that they can come in. Maybe having a dedicated closed off office isn't the thing. Maybe it's having someone more in the atrium that is able to process those payments. Just because, for instance, if I'm behind on my trash bill and I want to set up a payment plan, they tell me you have to go to the treasurer's office and make that first payment. And then you come back to my office, which is across town, to actually set up that payment plan with me. So if I go there on a day that the treasurer's office isn't open, I then have to take another day off of work to come down and make the payment, then take another day off of work and go back to the public works building. So just making sure things flow a little easier. It just makes sense. So
Of course.
I guess that's my only follow-up to that, but thank you.
And we are, that the software is so completely important to us. And, we've been trying to get it for years. And I'm hoping this year we're going to succeed. We just haven't had the funding.
Well, I just also want to point out, and I apologize for jumping the line. You mentioned that the software still might not do everything that you needed to do just 5 minutes ago. So I want to make sure that if we're looking to get a software, that it's able to do everything that we needed to do, particularly an interface with the police. If we know we're looking for something, do we know when the police contract is up for the software service that they do provide?
Well, I don't know about what the police, I can't answer for the police, but
Okay.
we've just been through two, very intense things. And the truth is, we see all of the things that on the software they tell us it's going to do, but the reality is it's not going to do every single thing that they tell us. It's not going to work exactly right. I mean, it's the implementation that, when you put that in. Now, I hope it's going to do 90% of it, everything's going to work, but I can't say it's going to everything. As far as the police interface, they don't interface the way we would like them to interface. We'd like it when they're out there and they write that ticket, boom, it goes immediately into our system. And that software that they have, that's not going to work with the police. I think what we're going to have to do is do some kind of download at the end of the day that we manipulate that then goes into the system. That's what I'm hoping for as the best solution for the tickets.
Okay, but I know we also, when we were looking at last year, at the end of last year, when we talked about software, we talked about every other department being able to interface with the new software, right? That was part of the reason that we were interested in. We had two companies that got held up. We're looking to figure out what the new company is. We have to figure out a way to, well, I'm hopeful you guys will find a solution with our IT
We want it more than you
to
want
build.
it, trust me.
And we all want it equally. We know we've been behind on software for 30 years in the city. So I apologize, Vice President Green and President Bowers.
Thank you. Councilman Mattson, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you both for coming this evening. So my questions are related to the budget. Specifically, Charlie or Mr. Bruner, was there anything that you saw that was alarming or any concerns regarding the budget? I guess, could you just give us
I think it is the opinion of all professionals in my office, including me, that this is the best budget we've seen since I've been here. It doesn't. Oh, can you hear me?
maybe a little closer?
It's on.
Hello?
Yeah.
This is the best budget that we've seen since we've been here. It doesn't use any prior year fund balance. It's adequately funded. It is a budget that can get into 2023. This is a really weird year because we are looking at a $72 million budget. We also have $66 million in recurring revenue. So we're overspending revenue, as we have been doing the whole time I've been here, with budgets that are not balanced. And it disturbs me mightily because we can't borrow money. We run out of money, we're out. And I don't want to go down that path again. We know what it was like back in 2013. When you're out of money, you're out. So this, to me, is a very conservative budget with looking at the future in a good way. This year, we have that $72 million budget if you approve it, and it's backed up by $66 million in recurring revenue and about $8.8 million in the COVID money, which I'm supportive of. It is a little bit over what we expect to get this year. So we are looking at a little fund balance, spending a little bit of fund balance, but I'm comfortable with it. We can handle it. The wonderful thing is next year's budget, if we even go to $66 million, the $72 million budget we have this year is only really $64 million because $8 million of it is for debt service payments. This is the last year we're going to have those bond obligations that are the last gift from Mayor Reed to the city. We've had these GO bonds on the books for years, long since anything we ever bought with those bonds is gone. And this has been a weight hanging around our neck for a long, long time. We have a chance this year, if we pass this budget, if you pass this budget and you allow the city to pay the debt down, well, next year we will be debt-free for real. You know, people have said, well, we're debt-free since the Strong Plan, but that took care of the incinerator stuff and some of the water stuff, but we still have this general obligation bonds that have been hanging here for a long time. So if you could I see an exciting, vibrant future for this city if we can get through 2022 in a good way. And I will also say that we have never worked so cooperatively with the people in the finance office. And I saw the letter from the ICA today, and I'm with them. We have worked, all of us work together in a way that we haven't done in a long time. So I'm comfortable with this budget. I think it's a good budget. I think it's one we can live with. And I think it's honest, which is another thing. I mean, this is an honest budget. So you guys can actually see what's going on. We haven't done, I think, Bill, we haven't actually had to reject an expenditure in 8 years because these budgets are so inflated. We have $65 million in revenue, and then they say they're going to bring in prior year funding of billions of dollars, and they do it several times a year. You know, they come down here and say they're doing a budget reallocation, but in reality, they were just taking more money from the prior year fund balance. Then inexplicably, they never spent it. So we're in a better spot now. We can all actually manage stuff properly, and so yeah, I think it's a good budget.
Mr. Miller, I guess I know that usually the controller is the one that kind of provides that oversight of the budget, but any comments from the Treasury's perspective?
I did not study the budget intently. I'm working on this software, so I can't tell you anything. I do think that in general, you know, the expenses are inflated in the budget, and there's very little control, and then there's always budget allocation. So I do second what Charlie says there. I think that's so important. It's so important that whoever is the budget chair here is on top of that, like all year long, and really knows what's going on in the budget and can really handle it at the end of the year.
And once again, I want to reiterate that my office is here for you guys. You know, it seems to be, I have a responsibility to you. The mayor has her own finance people, and they are good, and they can tell her what's going on, but you don't have any. So use me. If you have questions, if you want to know what we think about things, if you wanted to do an analysis of things, and you know, we're always doing that monthly report for you. That's for you. I put that out for you guys to see where we are vis-a-vis the expenses versus the budget. But I really would. We have a lot of work to do, but we still have capacity to help you if you want an analysis of any expense information or financial stuff. So call on us.
Okay, well, thank you for that, providing your oversight. Thank you and your team for all the help that you give the city. And I'm glad to hear that you're in favor of the budget.
You're welcome.
That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam President Bowers. Good evening, Mr. DeBurner and Mr. Miller. Thank you for coming. And I also want to say, Mr. DeBurner, thank you for extending that hand and saying that you were here for council to help us look at the budget and answer any questions. I think that was very helpful. So thank you. You did mention about you endorse the checks that come in. I was wondering who else does as well.
Dan.
So both, just two people, you and, okay, so three. Okay, thank you. More than, okay.
Well, when you're talking about signing checks, it's just us. remember?
Yeah, just, I'm sorry.
When
Just
this
we
purchase
No,
order,
but reviewing
purchase
the-
order
the
system.
Documentation to put the. check
Okay,
forward.
so but there's a process and I
Yes.
understand, okay,
Yeah,
which is
and-
good,
and-
okay.
And I'm pretty comfortable with that process now too. We've got it under control as much as you can control a process like this.
Mhm.
But I do feel like working with the new finance people like Marita and Brian and Dan, I'm looking at team. I think that's a really good team they have there, and I'm looking forward to working with them. This has been a tough a month or so for them. I mean, they didn't have anything, and they didn't have anybody or anything to work with. And I can't personally. When I looked at that, I couldn't believe they got it all done. It's hard to believe how much work that was, and so anyway, I'm pleased about it.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for answering my question. I was wondering, how many people did endorse the checks that came. Also, Mr. Miller, you had said you all were looking at software. I did see in the budget it was zeroed out. I do understand that does mean that if you find software you like, then we can allocate the money towards it since it does have a budget line. But what software were you looking at? When would you know what you would like? Because since there's nothing there right now, I didn't know how close you were to that process.
Well, it's actually, administration is also looking for it, and then money is budgeted in the capital budget for that. So it's not going to come right from our department. In prior years, it wasn't that way, and we were really pushing for it because we knew it had to be done. And so we had it selected. We have it down to 2, and I think they've been so involved in the budget that's sort of just been resting right now. And I've sort of stepped back until the budget was done on that. So hopefully with that, I also want to say that, Celia Spicer, the deputy treasurer, and I are both very professional financial people. I'm a CPA with an MBA in finance. We are more than willing to take on any financial projects that you're interested in. I mean, we want to see the city succeed. We're so excited because finally we think we have management that we can work with that wants to get things done. So I'm offering the same as Charlie over there.
Okay, and what are some of your goals this year in the Treasury? I know you mentioned the annual billing, but what else are some of your goals?
Well, the software, I mean, it's so important for us to get software, to get it implemented, to get a lot of systems changed, to make the flow better, to give the residents much easier access, to the system, et cetera. There's just so many things we can't do because of what our constraints are. When we get new software, I think it's going to make us do.
We're going to flow much
Yeah,
easier and things will be updated. Okay, and we'll be looking for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns for Mr. Miller and Mr. DeBruner? Thank you for joining us, gentlemen, and thank you for sharing an overview of the work of your offices. Before we move to courtesy of the floor, I did want to note the presence of the ICA chair who is present this evening. Ms. Audrey Carter, good evening. Not sure if you wanted to join us just since the correspondence that you shared earlier today was mentioned, just so for the benefit of the public. And this
Hello.
correspondence is relative to the budget.
Correct. Okay, thank you. Yes, part of our responsibility is fiscal oversight for the city. And so obviously the budget is a big concern. And as Charlie has said, it is the first time we feel like we have a real good relationship with an understanding with the finance department. I thought if you wouldn't mind, I'll just read 4 paragraphs from the letter so that the public can hear what we have shared. Some of it's just technical, so please bear with that. Bear with me on that. The authority received and reviewed the proposed 2022 budget and additional information provided by the city for conformance with the criteria set forth in Act 124. Additionally, we have observed the City Council's budget hearings and workshops. 2 observations of note follow. The general budget is functional and flexible despite significant uncertainties and constraints, and most importantly, remains balanced without the appropriation of any fund balance. This disciplined approach results in a decrease from last year's budget while still tackling new initiatives. The promised implementation of performance metrics will allow better evaluation of the outcomes for FY22. Unfortunately, the Neighborhood Services Fund, long a concern for the authority, still does rely on fund balance appropriation to balance its budget. There is hope that with added energy for improving the collections rate, this reliance could be reversed. The authority board members have acknowledged that the city's proposed revised and restated 2022 budget meets or exceeds the authority's expectations for the proper financial management of the city of Harrisburg. As a whole, we also applaud and this is directed at the mayor, so we applaud your assembled financial management team whose talents are a refreshing change and which lends immediate credibility to the city's financial management. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Do any of my fellow council members have any questions? Councilwoman Ross.
Yes, I didn't have a question, but I was wondering for the public, could you just explain a little bit more what the Neighborhood Service Fund, that portion that you read, just so they understand a little bit more what that is?
So that tends to be public works, the trash collection, billings, all that sort of thing. So, and it's been more precarious than the general fund and often finds itself imbalanced. This year it is in balance thanks to a fund balance appropriation from the Neighborhood Services Fund. There still is no appropriation from the general fund balance for anything.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, I have a question, Madam President.
Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Ms. Audrey, for being here this afternoon or this evening. In your professional opinion, excuse me, how does this budget compare to, say, former years?
Well, and again, in my professional opinion would be a wrong way to state because I'm not a professional financial manager.
Right.
But certainly in my observation of what I've come to learn, thanks to Charlie, and certainly thanks to Marita, it really is a disciplined approach. I think in prior years, there was so much budgeting for unused monies in anticipation of possibly using them, that's how you really began to see the fund balance grow. I think this one is realistic and reflective of what the mayor and her staff need to get things done this year.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Are there any other additional questions? Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
At this time, we will move to courtesy of the floor. Is there anyone to my immediate right that would like to offer comment? Just as a reminder, please state your name and you have 2 minutes to speak.
Okay, Keisha George Williams, employee of the city of Harrisburg. The controller mentioned issues about money and what they received for the CARES Act. I have an issue with that. I've been an employee. And since this COVID has started, I was forced to come in. I did not receive any compensation in regards to that. I am the only one in financial management that did not receive payment. And financial management is a wonderful place to work, but I feel as though that I have been discriminated against in regards to this. The union did not step up and communicate and fight for me in regards to this piece. And the whole entire board of ASME was paid. Police, fire, sanitation, which I commend them on their job and what they had to do. But I was forced to come in to push paper. And that to me is just as important if I was forced to come in to do so. I also had to process CARES Act work, which I was told that's my job and my job is essential and I'm not essential. Well, that's an issue for me. I believe as though the money is there. I was in here from the very start and was not compensated. City Treasury, everybody does not want to go online and use Cash App. It is a bank for the city. That's why it's called City Treasury. They push the money, push the cash. Everybody in this world want to shut down cash and go to Bitcoin and all this other stuff. But we need the US dollars and keep pushing and moving and exchanging from one year to another. So I believe that people should have the right to come in. The doors are locked, the front doors are locked, and the people in the receptionist area sit and have to explain why the doors are locked because they can't get access to city treasury. So that is an issue. It needs to be open. I mean, I wish we could be on a level where we can come in and work 3 days a week and have 2 days off to do and push work at home. I didn't have that responsibility. And as in city treasurer, I feel as though they should be open, just like a bank, because that's what they do. They function as a city treasurer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else to my right?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amanda Arbor. I live on Allison Hill. First, I want to say thank you to everyone from the administration and city council for all of the work and long hours you've been putting in for this budget process. I know a lot of us have spent a lot of time in this room over the last week or so, and just appreciate the work everyone's put in. And you've heard many of us in this room say that we have significant concerns with several items in the proposed police budget. And so I just want to touch on those briefly. First, in terms of the significant increase in the vehicle line item, including $800,000 for a new command vehicle. There's been a lot of discussion about this, and we have yet to see clear quotes. There's been lack of research in terms of the actual cost, and no one has shown how this purchase will improve public safety for the residents of Harrisburg. I would urge you to cut that from the police budget. Second, the increase of the advertising line, an additional $75,000 than previously. And again, with very little details or plan from the police department as to how that will be used, and admitting that they do not have expertise in this area. So again, I would ask you to cut that from the police budget. And finally, I was encouraged last night to hear that there may be an amendment to remove the 5 new CSA positions from the budget, which are currently zeroed out, but to remove them entirely. I would support that because many of us have not seen data proving the effectiveness of this program. It has been rolled out in a different way than what it was originally presented. And so I would support removing fully from the budget those 5 new CSA positions. And I'll say too, I've heard tonight, that this budget is conservative and that's definitely a positive thing for the city's financial status. And so a lot of departments are taking cuts as part of this. And so I do not believe the police department should get a pass, that they should be given these additional spending without clear justification. And finally, I'll say that, oh, is that the timer?
That was the
Okay.
timer.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else to my right that would like to offer public comment? Seeing none. Anyone in the middle section that would like to offer public comment? Okay. Anyone to my left that would like to offer public comment?
Good evening, Council. Pam Parson, 18th and Holly on Allison Hill. I would just like to remind you that a budget is a moral document. And what the people of Harrisburg said that they wanted when we surveyed them across all of city neighborhoods. Number one was housing. Number two was roads and road safety. 3 was infrastructure. 4, sanitation. 5, public spaces. 6, blight remediation. 7, youth programming. 8, pedestrian accessibility. 9, public transit. 10, mental health care and crisis response. So does our budget reflect these things? Are these the most important things in our budget? And I would suggest that they are not. As I mentioned last night, the police still gets the largest amount of our budget. And we have a woman who is doing 2 jobs, both housing and economic development. So is this what we want, Harrisburg? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to my left that would like to offer public comment? Seeing no one, we will move to approval of minutes. Council members, I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to review the minutes for the legislative session of February 1st, 2022, and the minutes from the special legislative session that was held on February 10th of 2022. Any revisions to those minutes? I have 2 minor to both. So starting with the February 1st legislative session meeting on page 2, under the second bullet, under resolutions, it notes President Bowers made a motion, seconded by Mr. Majors, to suspend the rules to allow further discussion on resolution 1, 2, 3, and 4. It says or, it should be of 2022. The second revision is for the minutes for the special legislative session that was held on February 10th of 2022. On page 2, under the second bullet point, it says President Bowers made a motion, seconded by Mr. Majors, to waive the reading of the amended book that was previously received. The R in my last name was missing. This time I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the legislative session of February 1st, 2022, and the minutes for the special legislative session of February 10th of 2022 as amended.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We will now move to reports of committees. We have a report from Chair Green on the budget meetings that were held on February 8th, 9th, 10th, and 14th of 2022. Chair Green.
Thank you, President Bowers. I will attempt to summarize this without making it too long. So please bear with me here. The Budget and Finance Committee held 4 public hearings on the budget between February 8th and February 14th. On February 1st, the administration presented the proposed 2022 budget to City Council. The first budget hearing was held on February 8th. We discussed public safety, which included police, fire, and codes. We received an update from the police department regarding the CSA program. CSAs have been on 115 calls to date in the roles, with 49 of those calls being this year. Council had questions about the program development, especially since it has had 3 different directors throughout the first year of the program. There were questions if the program was ready to expand or if it needed more time to develop. There were also questions about the police advertising line item, which saw a large increase compared to the previous years. The police department noted that they are looking to increase their advertising presence, similar to what the fire department did when they did their hiring campaign. They also noted that they had hired 5 new officers and were looking to put them in training, but the training was going to be pushed back, or they were looking for another training facility due to a rescheduling of the training by HAC. The 5 officers came from a pool of 147 applicants. There were also questions about the vehicle line item in the budget for the police department, which increased. The police noted that most of that funding would be used for a new mobile command vehicle, but because it was custom built, they didn't have the exact pricing for that. The fire department gave an overview of their budget, and they also answered questions that had previously been asked by council via a PowerPoint. We also received an overview from the codes department, and there were questions relating to the research analyst and the confidential secretary position, which they were able to follow up with at a later date because they didn't have the information at the time. On February 9th, we discussed the topics of administration, which included human resources, communication, business development, grants, community and economic development, IT, and building and housing. The administration addressed concerns from council about the budget potentially relying on ARPA funding to fund the budget. They noted that the ARPA funds were limited and could only be used for certain things, and that they would be holding several community meetings and discussing with the public the best use of the funds. Council also inquired about a reorganization, and the administration noted that they were putting a pause on the talks of reorganization, but will revisit it within 6 months as they look to see how things are going along. They did mention that they are looking to combine the community and economic director and the building and housing director into one position. On February 10th, the 3rd budget hearing was held. But we also held a legislative session, which the minutes were just approved a few moments ago. And on the 3rd budget hearing, we discussed public works, engineering, neighborhood services, parks and recreation, and we reviewed the remaining funds from the budget. A question was asked to the director of public works about his request for more laborers that was currently zeroed out in the budget. Director Spriggs noted that it would help his department to have these added staff, but that they would do what needs to be done to ensure that the city and the municipalities that we serve would not be affected. There were questions from councils regarding the engineer salary that had been zeroed out. The administration noted that the consulting line item was $150,000 and that they would be using this consulting firm to provide engineering services, especially since at the time we have a backlog of things that need to be approved by the engineering department and do not have an engineer on staff. On February 14th, we held the 4th budget hearing, and the mayor and the administration were present, and we discussed potential amendments that council had. These amendments included funding the city engineer position at 50% at a salary of $75,000 in this budget. The mayor noted that she is looking to use an engineering firm exclusively for this year to see if it is better for the city to have an engineering firm do these duties, or if it's better for us to employ an engineer. Another potential amendment was to increase the grant writer salary. The mayor said that she would be willing to increase the grant writer salary to $70,000. We also asked about adding a special assistant an assistant grant writer, and the administration preferred to categorize it as a special assistant to the Bureau of Finance. And that salary we were looking at was $55,000. There was also discussion about funding a human resource specialist position at $50,000, which the administration agreed with, to reclassify the communications manager to a communications director. The administration agreed with that as well. To fund a historic preservation specialist, the administration was in agreement with that. To fund an assistant city solicitor, the administration agreed with that as well. There was discussion about cutting the business administrator salary. The mayor was not in agreement with that because of the work that he's provided, as well as this being the salary that was provided to previous business administrators. looking to fund 2 labor 3 roles in the Public Works Department, which the administration agreed with, to remove the 5 new CSA positions from the budget, which the administration agreed with. There was also discussion about removing all unfunded positions from the budget. With that, that would mean that if money became available further in the year, those positions couldn't be filled because they do not exist. There was also discussion about amending the police line item budget. The police came down and spoke to us again, providing some of the usage for the vehicle over the past years and reasons why they were looking to purchase a new vehicle, but they still do not have specific cost because it's a custom-built vehicle. And then there was also discussion of reducing the Community and Economic Development Director's salary to $18,000 since it's being combined into 2 positions. And I believe that is all that we discussed during the 4 budget hearings that we had over the last week. Thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinances for first reading. We have none. We have 1 ordinance for amendment. That's Bill 2 of 2022. Mr. Petrowski, could you please read that into the record?
Bill 2 of 2022 is an ordinance establishing the amended budget pursuant to section 11810 of the 3rd class city code for the municipal government, the city of Harrisburg for the year 2022.
Thank you. As I mentioned during the caucus portion this evening, we have a number of amendments. Each amendment will be read separately and voted on individually. I will turn the floor over to Vice President, Budget and Finance Chair, Councilwoman Green.
Thank you, President Bowers. I would like to move for the Bureau of Grants, starting at page 51 of the amended exhibit binder. I move to increase the salary of the grant director to $70,000 with the related adjustments to fringe benefits.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Petrowski, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Madsen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Rawls?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Motion carries.
For the Bureau of Financial Management, starting at page 48 of the amended exhibit binder, I move to add the position of Special Assistant to Finance Bureau at the annual salary of $55,000 with the related adjustment to fringe benefits.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Petrowski, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Madsen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Rawls?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under the Bureau of Human Resources, starting at page 64 of the amended binder, I move to add funding to the presently unfunded Human Resource Specialist at the annual salary of $55,000 with the related adjustments to fringe benefits.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Petrowski, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Madsen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Rawls?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under the Bureau of Communications, starting at page 54 of the amended exhibit binder, I move to reclassify the current position of Communications Manager to Communications Director and to related substitute pages to the amended exhibit binder.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Petrowski, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniel?
Yes.
Mr. Madsen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Rawls?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under the Bureau of Planning, starting at page 70 of the amended exhibit binder, I move to add funding to the presently unfunded Historic Preservation Specialist Archivist at the annual salary of $50,750 with the related adjustments to fringe benefits.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Petrowski, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under the Office of City Solicitor, starting at page 42 of the amended exhibit binder, I move to add funding to the presently unfunded Assistant City Solicitor contracts at the annual salary of $76,500 with related adjustment to fringe benefits.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Petrosky, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels, Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under the Bureau of City Services, starting at page 120 of the amended exhibit binder, I move to add funding to 2 presently unfunded laborer 3 positions at the annual salary of $40,342.94 with the related adjustments to fringe benefits and otherwise in conformity with the collective bargaining agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Petrosky, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under the Bureau of Police, starting at page 81 of the amended exhibit binder, I move to strike 5 of the unfunded community service aid positions.
Is there a second?
Second. No, Ms. Rawls, you got it.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Petrosky, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
No.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
As Public Safety Chair, I just wanted to mention that I feel as though it's just as important to know where we're going to reallocate the funds, just as important as we know where we take it from. But I do support, yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Just of note, they were unfunded, so there were no funds to reallocate.
Right.
Under the Bureau of Police, starting at page 81, and specifically under Budget Unit 01040142 and related equipment vehicle expenditure line item 453004, I move to decrease the authorized annual budget expenditure to the sum of $246,664.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes.
just a technical issue. The council is entitled to discuss each of these if they so wish after the second before the vote.
Thank you. Is there any discussion relative to amendment number 9?
Yeah, I have a comment. So for me, I understand that the piece of equipment in question would probably be rarely used. They're essentially, from the research I've done, for extreme circumstances, and hopeful that we wouldn't have to use it. So I understand the concern over such a large price tag. However, if one of these extreme circumstances do occur, I am afraid that the city wouldn't be able to respond adequately without this piece of equipment. However, I do believe that based off the conversations we have had with the Fire Bureau and the Police Department, that there could be opportunities to partner with surrounding municipalities that would likely, in an extreme circumstance, need this vehicle as well. So what I'd like to see is hopefully further conversation down the road. And I didn't get to comment on this on my last vote, but I think it's really important that we get the Citizens Law Enforcement Advisory Committee up and running. I know Councilman Rodriguez is collecting resumes, but a large part of these conversations, I think we voted for the CSA program in conjunction with this committee to discuss public safety with the community and how to best address public safety concerns. So I guess what I'm trying to say is largely that I think this warrants further discussion and how we can partner with other communities and municipalities around this piece of equipment. So I hope we can do that further down the road in this year.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments relative to amendment number 9?
I have a statement. I'd just like to echo Councilman Madsen's sentiments, because I do understand from the community's standpoint, it makes no sense with such a grand price tag on it. But on the other side, I have seen at times of despair when it can be used in dispatch. So I do see both ends, and I just appreciate the discussion on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one comment before we move forward. I know that this has been a high discussion point amongst the administration, the Bureau of Police, and council and residents alike about the mobile command vehicle requested by the Bureau of Police at the amount of $800,000. In my opinion, the police commissioner nor the deputy commissioner could not clearly articulate the use of the mobile command vehicle. If this vehicle is such a dire need, every officer in the Bureau should be able to articulate what the vehicle can be used for. In addition, the commissioner noted that this vehicle could be utilized by the Bureau of Fire as well, but never shared what they could use the vehicle for. So as such, I do not support making such a large expenditure without definite answers of the use of such a specialty vehicle. Thank you. Any other comments or questions before we call the vote?
I will just make a comment. I agree with Council President as far as being able to articulate the use for it, as well as being able to articulate a concrete price, understanding that it is a custom-built vehicle. But I do know when you go to get something built custom, whether it's a car or a suit, they can price it out for you before you go to buy it. So having that information and not having that information, I thought was really telling, because it's something they should have come prepared with when asking for such a large amount. I will note that when asked about it the first time, they did express that they were looking to grant fund that and that they weren't looking to fund that out of this budget. So to me, it's kind of a moot point. It doesn't need to be in this budget if they weren't actually looking for it to be in this budget. So I think that kind of wraps up my comments on that.
Thank you. Councilman Majors.
Yes, and just to echo the comments of both of our illustrious president and vice president, during those conversations, there was discussion about a $250,000 that was offered that was on the table that was pulled, that was grant fund. So I think if we're going to have a larger conversation, to Vice President Green's point, we can look at if a need, we can look to grant funded rather than it come out of this this budget. So I think a larger conversation is definitely warranted. But in terms of this budget, I think we could remove that expense if that's the decision of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Petrowski, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Sure. Under the Office of the Business Administrator, starting at page 45 of the amended exhibit binder, I move to decrease the annual salary of the position of Business Administrator to $80,000 with the related adjustments to fringe benefits.
Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion
Fails.
fails. I was going to say dies, but it fails.
For the amended exhibit binder, the amended binder exhibit to the proposed 2022 amended budget, I move to strike out all unfunded positions.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, any comments or questions relative to the amendment?
Yes, I will make a comment. I am not, I know I just read it and made the motion, but I'm not in support of this motion, just because it does not allow for us to be able to fund any of those positions because they won't exist. So for instance, if the public decides that they want to fund a firefighter trainee position or another laborer position that's in the budget, they won't be able to because it's not in the budget anymore. So I think that just restricts what can be done. And I think it's unnecessary. So I know I made the motion.
Thank you. Any other comments or
Yes.
questions?
I kind of echo the sentiments of Vice President Green. The position can be filled, it just would have to be reintroduced in front of council, I believe, and it just causes another process that may be unnecessary. So I do see them valuable, but I do understand both sides. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Petrosky, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
No.
Mr. Mattson.
No.
Just to confirm, if you're voting, yes, you're voting in support of the amendment. If you're voting,
Yes, I want to vote no. I do not want to strike out the unfunded positions. So no to this amendment.
Okay.
I'm voting against the amendment I proposed.
all right, Mr. Majors,
No.
Ms. Rawls,
No, I do not want to strike out.
Mr. Rodriguez,
No.
Ms. Bowers,
No.
motion fails.
For the Bureau of Financial Management, starting at page 48 of the amended exhibit binder, I move to decrease budget unit 421030 consulting by 9,000 from 2,000 to 11,000 and to increase budget unit 429001 tuition training by 9,000 from 0 to 9,000. Would you like me to
For a
explain?
point of clarification, is it 20,000 or 2,000?
It's taking the 20,000 and decreasing it from 9,000 to add 9,000 to the other line for tuition and travel, tuition and training. Would you like me to further explain?
No,
Okay.
you said 2,000 the first time, so.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes, thank you.
I apologize.
No problem. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments?
Well,
relative? No, go ahead.
President Bowers. I just always believe in training and always receiving training on different things. And I feel like with being in the financial management department, any department, especially dealing with budgets, it's always important to be up to date on what's happening. And there's a lot of associations that include memberships where you are able to get training and where you're able to do yearly conferences. So I just believe that I wanted to make sure everybody was getting training that's necessary to keep up to date with our changing world in the budget area.
Thank you.
I would just like to ask the administration if they could explain, I guess, what the 20,000 will be used for, and if they are, any interest in decreasing, not decreasing. Just your thoughts.
I don't believe we have any objection to her recommendation or amendment.
Thank you.
No objection here. Just to confirm for my own thoughts, it's a $9,000 decrease from the consulting line and a corresponding $9,000 increase to tuition and training.
Yes.
Thank you.
Could you clarify, Brian, whether this is the funding that pays for the pre-audit services for your department? Or is that contracted services? I mean, I don't know. It's your budget.
That is in the proposed budget, what you just said, Neil, the audit preparation services.
Which are essential.
Yes, but I do believe there's an additional amount, but beyond that, this $9,000 move won't diminish to the point of a concern.
Okay.
It costs, but
Right.
I believe so.
That,
Yeah.
taking the $9,000 away, but not enable us not to pay beyond.
Yeah, I believe it's doable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, Mr. Petrosky, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yeah.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
motion carries.
For the Bureau of Police, starting at page 81 of the amended exhibit binder, I move to the decrease budget unit 420010, advertising by $73,100 from $76,100 to $3,000.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or comment relative to this is amendment number 13?
Just for clarification, we're going down to $3,000 for advertisement.
That's correct.
I can understand how the department may struggle with recruitment and retention with those funds. It'd be hard to attract, qualified candidates from the area, especially with $3,000. We can barely put out flyers with that amount. I just wanted to keep that in mind for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I did agree with that in a way that, 3,000 may not be enough, but then they said they wanted the fire department or the police bureau said they wanted to mimic what the fire department did, and looking at their last budget and what they asked for advertisement. One year was 2,000, which was in 221, and in 220 they asked for 1,756. So it felt like it was appropriate amount to go to 3,000, but I'm fine if we maybe want to change it to 5,000, but I do not think they need $76,100 for advertising.
I believe what they were referring to was how the fire department handled the job recruitment that year with the yard signs everywhere.
Right.
I believe that's what they meant when they were saying they wanted to kind of mimic the style.
Yes.
I don't know if they frankly meant the whole year promotion and marketing and et cetera.
Excuse me, I believe our solicitor has a comment.
And it's really just on the parliamentarian side, because it doesn't come up very often. And based on the comment, a motion, if the moving member accepts it, can have an amendment to it by another member. So if there was an amendment you proposed and wanted to make, and it requested the moving member for acceptable, you could do that at this time. In addition to that, I remind council that under the optional third-class city charter, the mayor is allowed to participate in the meetings, and I don't know if she wants to speak to this matter at all.
Please. Councilwoman Ross, please keep in mind that during the year 2019, 2020, the Harrisburg Police Department, that was during the pandemic, did not do any advertising for any positions. So that's why it's probably was at that low. If you put a cap on what they need for advertising, then their reach, because they put in bulletins, they also put in other departments throughout the state of Pennsylvania and some of your colleges, universities. So those are the reasons that they do need that additional money for advertising. So you limit them to where they can advertise. So I know, we talk about, the residents talks about defunding the police department, but don't handicap the police department in doing their job to retain or, recruit the additional police officers that they need.
Thank you. No, I don't want to handicap them at all, but when they came to speak about their advertisement, they said they weren't expertise in it. They weren't sure how they could do it. They weren't sure really how to advertise. So they had a lot of questions about what to do. So I felt like to give them that much money when they still really didn't know how they wanted to do it or how to advertise was a lot.
Well, if you want to decrease it, that's fine, but I have always pushed for Commissioner Carter to go out to different universities and recruit, and not only that, to the schools and do the advertising that they need. Now, if he doesn't know how to do it, which I've already indicated to him, then we need to use the services of someone else who's a publicist or something. And so that's why he probably put the additional monies in there, because I'm really pushing him to go out here and recruit. We need additionally 36 to 40 different officers, because as you know, during this time right now, we had 25 officers with COVID. So we're doing overtime and we don't have the right complement at this point. We're down about 45 officers for this, particular area. So that's why he probably increased the advertising, because I made him understand that, I wanted him to understand that we wanted to be more diverse too in our recruitment efforts.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Williams.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments?
Just a comment. Recognizing that we may need to have a little bit more than 3,000 available, I wanted to know if the chair, excuse me, not chair, Councilwoman Rawls would be accepting of amendment to have the advertising budget be $15,000. I think that from my perspective, it's a little bit more than they have to be able to have some flexibility. And then if they should need to come back before us again, we give them a little bit of wiggle room to be able to come back before us. But just wanted to know if you'd be accepting of that as a potential amendment. So a dramatic reduction, but give them some opportunity, recognizing we do need to have them attend some job fairs. I know what was mentioned at one of the meetings was that my alma mater, Lincoln University, does a law enforcement training and has a potential to maybe bring some recruits from the first historically Black college and university in the country to Central Pennsylvania, or look at other potential avenues to do some recruiting in our area. But I think
So what you say?
want to know if you'd be accepting of that.
Yes, I would be.
Okay,
Madam President,
Mayor Williams.
yes, speaking with our solicitor now, Ms. Bowers, if you would go to 20,000, because I'm understanding that there's other areas that we could publicize and advertise at a lower cost. And Mr. Grover just made me aware of that.
Okay. Yes, I wouldn't object to that.
Thank you.
And a council member would have to make that motion to amend the motion.
Can you please speak into the mic?
And a council member would have to make the motion and request to amend the motion
I'd make the motion to amend the motion.
to $20,000.
Absolutely.
I have a question, just so we're
You
clear.
need a second before you can.
Right,
Great.
before discussion. Is there a
And then
second?
I
discussion.
second it.
And then the question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just so for my benefit, the mayor is okay with the amendment at $15,000.
No, it's
20,000, excuse me, 20,000. Okay, that's my last question, 20,000. Okay. Thank you.
And if I find that they need additional money during the year, next year's budget, then I can certainly, come here and increase it. But they have to justify what they're using the money for and how they're advertising. I'd just like to see that.
That was going to be my question. Can they give us reports on justifications of how it's being used? And if the advertisement that they are doing is working?
Well, we want to see that in all departments because,
Yes,
we're
this is
advertising for
true.
the city of Harrisburg. So don't, concentrate on the police department. Every department, you should want a clarification of how we utilize the money for advertising.
Yes, I agree
Okay.
with that. I would like that from every department.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Petrowski, could you please read the new amendment?
Sure, it's around 13. For the
Yes.
Bureau of Police, starting at page 81 of the amended exhibit binder, moving to increase the budget unit 420010 advertising,
I believe it's decrease.
or decrease budget for 420010 advertising 73,100 from 60.
I believe it'll be 53,100.
53,100. Yeah, I'm sorry.
56,100. would be
56,100?
Yes.
56,100.
Based on the $20,000 allotment.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, and from 76,100 to 20,000.
Yes.
That's correct. Thank you. Can you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carries.
For the Bureau of Business and Resource Development, starting at page 76 of the amended exhibit binder, I move to decrease the salary of the position of Director in Economic Development to $18,000 with related fringe benefit adjustments, and to make the appropriate notation demonstrating that 80% of the salary for that position will be paid out of the federal funds from a separate account.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I think the few community members were confused about, how much Ms. Hill would actually get paid for both positions. I believe some community members, thought she would be decreasing her pay. I heard that was a few concerns, yesterday, but can you explain, it's not decreasing, but can you further explain that so the public understands?
I know there's some concern about Ms. Hill taking on the two jobs, and I can really confirm that she is going to be able to do the two jobs. She approached me, she was interested, she as well gave you a list of priorities that she would like to see moving into that position. 90,000 will be, 80,000 will be coming out of the federal funding, and 18,000 will be coming out of the general fund to pay her salary. So it would be a total of $98,000.
Thank you for
With a
explaining.
cost saving to the citizens of Harrisburg.
Thank you for further explaining that.
Any other further discussion?
Yes, just discussion. So I guess I initially was on board with this, but then I'm also thinking, should we need additional flexibility within that department or at that position? If we kept it funded at that current level, that is just the cap on which you could pay an individual in that position. So should for some reason a restructuring or reorganization not go through, you would still have up to $90,000 to pay a community and economic development director. And you could still cap it at a certain percentage should that person take on both roles. I'm just thinking about, we need a community and economic development director, understanding the administration's position to have that person do a dual role. You would still have a salary for that position. Should something unforeseen occur, you would still have that flexibility at that salary level. So just a comment.
I would definitely agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary for us to reduce the salary, because you can pay less, you just can't pay more. I believe this was something that was brought to us by the administration, so I'll let the mayor speak more to that.
I don't have any concern with that, Mr. Majors, at this time, because I think that Ms. Hill is going to be able to be here for that extended period of time. She has no reason to leave at this particular point. She's the one who approached me and said that she'd be interested in the position since she's already have done several duties under that scope.
So just to clarify, you're in support of reducing the salary
No,
or not?
no.
I was the argument just made it seem like you were more in
No,
support.
I'm
of
not
reducing
supporting
it.
reducing the salary. I'm in support of the 98,000.
At least for the solicitor's office, this is a bookkeeping question as more than anything else. So it was brought because it was discussed last night, but it's a bookkeeping matter. The combined salary cannot be more than the mayor has signed on to pay the employee. Right, so.
Thank you for clarifying. Is there any further discussion?
Just to clarify, the proposed reduction is 72,000. Just wanted to be clear.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Any additional questions, comments, concerns? Okay, Mr. Petrosky, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
No.
Mr. Madsen,
No.
Mr. Majors,
No.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
It's just.
Mr. Rodriguez,
No.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes.
Motion fails.
No. This was bookkeeping. She's getting most of her money from the federal money. Because she was getting that, they were gonna cut this down.
Thank you, Chair Green, for leading us through our amendments. I just had a parliamentary question that I was waiting for.
My apologies.
No, that's okay. So now that we've moved through all of the proposed amendments that we have, I am not aware of any other additional amendments. Is this the moment in the meeting where we pause to ensure everything is balanced?
It is, I would say that the protocol would be that I think at this point you would call one last time if there's any member has another amendment they wish to offer prior to recessing.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other additional amendments that council members would like to offer? Hearing none. At this time, we will
Recess
recess at 7:30 PM.
and reconvene in 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, we'll reconvene in 15 and 20 minutes. I didn't want to put a time limit on it because I don't know if it will exceed that time.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
A little bit more than 15 or 20 minutes if possible.
Okay.
Needs
Just to
make
double
the
check
actual changes to the
figures,
bill.
if I may.
Do you think a half an hour, is that too long? Or is that enough time for
I
you?
think we can accomplish that in a half an hour.
Okay,
Sure.
so it is now 7:31. We will reconvene at 8:01 PM. Thank you.
Thank you, President Bowers.
The time is now 8:41 PM. We will resume our legislative session. Are there any additional amendments to Bill 2 of 2022? Hearing none, we will move to ordinance for final passage, excuse me. Bill 2 of 2022 as amended. Again, are there any final amendments to Bill 2 of 2022 as amended?
And Madam President, at this
Yes.
point, these should be read as an amendment, the items highlighted in red, as they
Okay.
conform to the amendments made this evening by council.
Thank you. Mr. Prochaski, could you please read the amendments?
You need to make a motion to have it amended and
Excuse
a
me.
second, and then
Thank you. I think I got confused with the final amendment statement. That's where I got lost, but thank you.
sorry.
That's okay. Is there a motion to accept, to vote, is there a motion to accept Bill 2, 2022 as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Wachowski, could you please read Bill 2 of 2022 as amended?
Bill 2 of 2022 as amended is an ordinance establishing the amended budget pursuant to section 11810 of the third class city code for the municipal government of the city of Harrisburg for the year 2022. With the following amendments. On line 16, under section 1, general fund, with the total number being $71,754,062.
70 million.
What is it?
You said 71.
I'm sorry, $70,754,062. Line number 24 for general government, the new number totaling $2,813,173. Line 55 under city solicitor's office and personnel, with the total number being 537,402. Line number 59, total city solicitor's office, total number being 855,202. Under the Department of Administration, line number 74, the total number being 4,298,921. Line number 84, under the Bureau of Grants Personnel, that number will be changed to 75,355. Line 88, total grants management, total number being 79,855. Under the Bureau of Human Resources, line 98, personnel, total number, and that line item is 468,471. The total in human resource line number 102, the total number being 598,946. For the Department of Budget and Finance, line number 119, total number being 744,758. Line number 122, personnel, total being 513,458. And the total for financial management, line 126, being 744,758. Under the Department of Parks and Recreation and Facilities, line 128, the number would be 3,463,508. Under personnel, line number 131, that will be changed to 1,274,046. Line 135 for the total Parks and Recreation, number will be 3,463,508. $30,508. Line 137 for the Department of Public Safety, that would be changed to $30,089,635. Line 148 under the Bureau of Police, under services, be changed to $1,139,567. Line 150 under listed as other, the total number would be $266,664. The total line number 151 for the Bureau of Police is $18,704,930. Line number 160 for the Department of Engineering and Planning, number is $3,171,171. Line 170 under the Bureau of Planning for personnel, it's changed to $247,655. Line 174 for planning, it's changed to $339,655. Page line number 242, the caption has changed to $18,116,657. And on line 248 under personnel, it's changed to $4,844,033. Line 252 for total city services, it's changed to $15,059,543. I believe that completes the amendments. You want to double check just to make sure I got everything? All right.
Can you speak into the mic? I'm not sure.
Does he need to read 405?
It was blue. It was blue. I don't know if that was
Okay.
just supposed to be changed.
Okay,
Right.
sorry.
Thank you. Prior to voting, is there any discussion, any questions, comments, concerns? I do have a comment. I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank our Vice President and Budget and Finance Committee Chair, Councilwoman Green, for your leadership during an unprecedented budget process. I also wanted to thank the Law Bureau for your assistance in navigating this process with council. Thank you to my fellow council members for the time and attention that we all invested in ensuring the budget was accurate and truly reflected the needs of the city. Finally, thank you to Mayor Williams, Mr. Dan Hartman, Ms. Marita Kelly, and Mr. Brian McCutcheon for all the hard work in delivering a budget for the city of Harrisburg. The budget is by no means a perfect document, but certainly a working document. The reality is the city can't function without a budget in place. City council members carefully reviewed the 394 pages of total documents we received each night of the budget hearings. This doesn't include the documents received via email following up on our requests for job descriptions and other information requested. We asked pointed questions and we amended the budget to offer improvements to the functionality of the city. Council offered 14 amendments to assist in improving the operations of the city. Highlights of the amendments include increased complements of the Bureau of Human Resources, the Bureau of Financial Management, the Office of the City Solicitor, the Bureau of Planning, the Bureau of Business and Resource Development, and the Department of Public Works. Reclassified the communications manager role to a communications director, amended the Department of Financial Management's budget to include training, and other membership. Amended the Bureau of Police budget to reflect no mobile command vehicle and decrease their advertising services to complement what we felt was needed. We removed the 5 new CSA positions from the budget. This budget process has been a marathon, to say the least. At the end of the day, we did not settle for what was presented and amended a few times. Instead, we brought forth practical amendments that we feel are in the best interest of the city. I look forward to a smoother mid-year budget review. Thank you. So, are there any other final amendments?
No, you have a question on the floor for a vote?
I know, but I thought I had to continue with the
No, no,
amendments. Okay. Well, Mr. Wachowski, could you please call the vote for Bill 2, 2022 as amended?
Ms. Daniels,
No.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes,
Bill 2 as amended passes.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Bill 3 of 2022, Mr. Petrosky, could you please read it into the record?
Bill 3 of 2022 is an ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the city of Harrisburg. Title 5, Licensing and Taxation, Part 5, Real Estate Taxes, Chapter 5-501, Property Tax by amending in accordance with Section 11810 of the Third Class City Code for the year 2022, a tax levy on land and improvements, and providing for the distribution of taxes levied and assessed, providing for a tax rebate for the difference between the tax due and attributable to year 2022, tax levy over the tax due and attributable to the year 2006, tax levy for qualifying senior citizens.
Thank you. Is there any discussion necessary?
There is not, but from the Law Bureau, there would be one comment.
Okay,
This supplants the tax bill, which had the same tax levy in it that was voted on in December. And that is the intention of the bill to match up to the budget. And the things that are different is the subcategories for like debt service, parks and rec, and those things. I note that because with the payoff of the general obligation bonds in this calendar year, next year will be the year to revisit the structure of the tax bill. So it shouldn't be something that happens at the end of the year. It's something that should happen with the administration and the council during the year, because part of that levy has always been because you're obligated to include your debt service in the tax. So it's a good time to modernize it, and it's a good opportunity to modernize it. It's sort of been in the structure it's in for decades. So I just raise that because the opportunity will come, and it shouldn't be left to the end of the year to address.
thank you. Are there any questions from council members relative to Bill 3 of 2022? Seeing none, Mr. Petrosky, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yeah.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes,
Bill 3 passed.
thank you. We'll move to resolutions. We have Resolution 8 of 2022. Mr. Petrosky, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 8 of 2022 is a resolution ratifying a domestic animal protective services agreement with Humane Society of Harrisburg area to provide services to the city of Harrisburg's animal control program.
Thank you. Is there any discussion needed? Okay, are there any questions from fellow council members?
Was it moved and seconded? I've lost track.
No,
Yeah,
it
just
wasn't.
going for the vote.
Oh,
Just calling for the vote.
okay.
Mr. Wachowski, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes,
Resolution 8 passes.
thank you. We have Resolution 12 of 2022. Mr. Petrosky, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 12 of 2022 is a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into an addendum to a professional services agreement with Atwood Engineering, Inc. for that firm to provide services as the city engineer.
Thank you. Resolution 12 will move to Public Works. Is there any old business, council members? Any new business? I just wanted to highlight that the city of Harrisburg will host a series of American Rescue Plan public meetings. The dates, times, and locations are as follows. Wednesday, February 16th, 2022, from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Boys and Girls Club located at 1227 Berry Hill Street. On Thursday, February 17th, 2022, the meeting will be held at the Allison Hill Community Center located at 1524 Walnut Street from 5:30 to 7:30. Next Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022, the meeting will be held at the Boys and Girls Club located at 17th and Hanover Street from 5:30 to 7:30. Next Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022, the meeting will be held at HMAC located at 1110 North 3rd Street from 5:30 to 7:30. Finally, on Thursday, February 24th, 2022, the meeting will be held at the Nativity School of Harrisburg located at 2101 North 5th Street from 5:30 to 7:30. I also wanted to note that I understand that there is a public meeting being held this evening to discuss gun violence within the city. Please note that our council meetings were scheduled for the year and on the city's website. So I did not want the public to think that we were being dismissive of this very important forum that's occurring. It just conflicted with our meeting. So I would ask those that hosted and planned the forum in the future to be considerate of the city council calendar that's posted on the city website, so that we would have an opportunity to participate. Any other new business? Yes, Mayor Williams.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for the support of my first budget for the year. Thank you for all your patience and hard work. And I want to commend Councilwoman and Vice President Asha Green for the job well done, and my staff as well, Ms. Kelly, Mr. Hartman, and Mr. Brian McCutcheon. So thank you again, and I look forward to working with you and presenting to you a mid-year budget.
Thank you. Any other new business? The time is 8:59 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. We stand adjourned.